In this week's session 6, music theory, we will be looking at the stave, stemming, clefs, and leisure lines. Okay, so notes. We already experienced notes in the first set of work we did, and we actually use notes in that area to depict rhythm. So notes are symbols that depict rhythm. Pitch is how high or low a note sounds. And the reason why I'm bringing up pitch is because notes can be used to actually denote a specific pitch when placed on a staff or stave. So it actually combines rhythm with pitch. So notes have twofold, their work is twofold. They depict rhythm, and when placed on a stave, it depicts rhythm as well as pitch, which is denoting how high or how low a note sounds. So I use the word stave. I use the word stave or staff. Both have the same meaning, and this is what a stave or staff looks like. You have seen it before. And when you're putting notes on the stave, you can put notes in spaces. And in this case here, you always count from the bottom. And the staff has 1, 2, 3, 4 spaces. So the space is what we consider to be the area between two lines. So you count from the bottom, go up for a stave. So between these two lines, that's space 1. Space 2 is between the second and third line. Space 3 is here, space 4. And it's important to remember you always count from the bottom of your stave, go up. And when they're placed on lines, well, you count from the bottom, go up as well. Line 1 is here, 2, this middle line is the third line, fourth and fifth. So your stave consists of 5 lines and 4 spaces. Now, this is not a hard and fast rule because the stave can change the amount of lines you're using according to the instrument you're playing. So when we were doing rhythm, you notice the staves was only a 1-line staff on which we put the note because it was just the rhythm. The pitch was not important. If you have maybe a conga, one that's high, one that's low, you could have a staff that is showing only 2 lines in it. The higher one will be for the higher line, like up here. The higher line will be the higher conga, and the lower line will be the lower conga. So that brings me to speaking about the stave. If you look at the stave, I like to say it is a ladder. In this case, a 5-rung ladder. And if you put a note on the first line of your staff will sound lower than a note that's on your 5th line. The pitch goes up from lines 1, it goes up higher to 2, 3, 4, 5. So the higher note is on the stave, the higher it sounds, the lower note is on the stave, the lower it sounds. So a stave consists of 5 lines and 4 spaces. It's where you put your notes to depict pitch.
Notes on the staff or stave.
When you're in a community like on Facebook or Instagram, sometimes you see these things and you know it's an inside joke. So this is a meme that always pops up on my feed. How to annoy a musician. And at first glance, you really, as a musician, you feel annoyed when you see it. A non-musician will be like, well, I don't get it. So I'm showing you this now, and after you learn about how to put in notes on a stave, I'll show you it after, and you can see how it could be annoying. I'm going to place a note in every space. We learned that there were 4 spaces. The time is 4/4, meaning there's going to be 4 quarter notes in a bar. I'm going to use half notes. So if I use half note, that means each bar will take two half notes. Just a little recap. So I'm going to put a note in every space. So first space, always count from the bottom. Second space, oops, now it's in the space. Third space, fourth space. So I don't know if you observed that while I was putting the notes in each space, the sound of each was getting higher. Yes. So from lowest space to the highest space, the pitch also gets higher. So let's focus on the circular part of the note. This is called a note head. When it's not shaded, it's called an open note head. And you'll notice that the entire oval or circle fits into this space. Don't know if you can see that. The bottom part of the circle touches the bottom line and the top part touches the top line. There's no overlapping. It fits completely in the space. Here as well. When a musician sees this, they know the pitch is definitely in this space. In this case, it's the third space. And in this case, it's the fourth space. That's how you draw notes in a space. So I'm going to go here and put some notes in a line. I will use quarter notes, so I will only need 2 bars. So I can make it a little bigger. Quarter notes. So quarter notes. First line. Second line. Third line. Fourth line. And I'm going to go in the next bar because my time signature is saying I cannot hold anymore in this bar. It's still 4 over 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So I went to the next bar to put my next note. Now look at the difference. When a note is on line and the note head, this is a shaded, we call this a closed note head. When note is on a line, the half of the circle is above the line, half is below. Only one line is in contact with your note head when it's on the line, and that's the line that's going right through the middle of your note head. Second line, so you're going to just have it there mid-air, and only the second line is going through it here. Third line, fourth line, fifth line. So it looks like a string that's going through a bead in a sort of way. Nothing else. There's no touching of the line below. There's no touching on the line above. This is how you depict that a note is on a line, and the musician can clearly see this is on a fourth line. This is on the second line.
Stem direction or stemming.
All right, so on the top stave, I have placed 4 notes. And if you observe well, you notice that these 4 note heads are on the lower part of the stave. And if you look at these 4 on the second system, these note heads are on the upper part of the stave. When notes are on the lower part of the stave, actually we learn to count the lines 1, 2, 3. Any note head that is below that middle line, below that third line, the direction of the stems are up. The stems are also on the right side of your note head. So it kind of looked like the letter D. If you get in trouble to remember it, remember D's and P's. These here are the P's. So notes that are below that third line, your stems are up on the right hand side. A lot of people wonder what's the length of the stave. It should pass at least through 2 to 3 spaces. So that will be the length. It's not an exact maths, but it can't be too short. People need to see the stem. So any note that is below that middle line, line 3, the stems are up and on the right. I'm going to just turn the stems down here just so you'd see what they look like. When you're having difficulty to remember if the stems should be up, the basic rule is that the stems cannot be extended or hanging away from the stave. Stems can be jutting out of the stave. So the only way to make these low notes stem not jut out of the stave itself is by turning them the other way. The stems must be within the stave. So once again, any note that is below the middle line, your stems are up and they're on the right side of the note head. And the opposite holds true for stems that are above the middle line. They are down. They're on the left of your note head, on the left side of your note head to look like the letter P. The length of your stems are about 2 to 3, 2.5, 3 spaces of the stave in length. You average it. It's not an exact match like 1.5 centimeters, 2 inches. It's not like that. It must be long enough for the musician to see the stem. So the stem, when it's above the middle line, the stems must be down. Because should I supposedly put them up, you'll notice these stems are jutting out. They're sticking out of the stave. That's a no-no, especially if the notes are single. These notes are single. They're all by themselves. Sometimes you could have more than one note played at the same time. We're not doing that. But once it's single like this, which is your focus, you do not want these stems. You do not want these stems jutting out of the stave. So if they're above, to keep them in the stave, you're going to draw them down. Middle line is the rule. So you'd notice that I did not draw any pictures on the middle line, and I am pretty sure you're curious about that. If it's on the middle line, like you can see here, down or up is acceptable. It can go either direction because it's on the middle line. Down on the left or up on the right.
The G clef or treble clef.
Clefs. Clefs are symbols that are placed at the very beginning of your stave. So I'm going to take this clef and rest it here on the stave. And I know it's a clef that you're familiar seeing. You may have seen it on a teacup, on a t-shirt, on some sort of imprint where they are trying to depict music. This clef is called the G clef or the treble clef. And the G clef or the treble clef is the clef that denotes high pitched notes, like where a female soprano voice will sing, an alto, a flute, or a recorder will play. You would use this clef. It's called a G clef because this circle area, you see in the circular area here, it surrounds a very specific line. It's kind of focused on the second line. And that is where, if I were to put a pitch on that second line, that note would be G. So this clef actually used to indicate to singers or musicians where the pitch G is, a specific G, G4. Now, this is where we place our modern day G clef or treble clef. Right, this part must surround the second line. But centuries ago, this clef was movable. It could have been here. And notice this part is encircling not the second line anymore, but rather the fourth line. So if a musician were to see this, they will know now that this line is G. The clef in our time does not move. It's in a fixed spot. It encircles that second line. So drawing your clef, is to be very, very precise. I'm going to attempt to draw a clef here and show you what is the mechanics to make the clef. So the first thing you want to do, and I will do it the step-by-step way. The first step is you want to draw a line extending above the stave and just below the stave like this to form a letter G. Now this circle they have here is not necessary. So you start at the top of the stave, just above it, extend it just below and form a letter G. So that's step one. The second step is from the top here, you want to make a curve going to the right and it will dissect on the fourth line. This is the fourth line here. So from the tip top, you're going to curve and dissect on the fourth line. This is going to make a circular movement to just come on the first line where the J part is dissecting it. And from here, the movement is going to continue up to the third line. You go into the left side of the J, you continue the movement and just let it slightly hang over. So that's the basic shape. This is a very precise shape of how you want it. Once more, you're going to start above the stave and you extend and you come down to form like a letter J. Like I told you, that circle part is not necessary. From the tip top of it, you're going to the right and you're going to make a slight curve to touch the stave on the fourth line. After a while, this will be a smooth, continuous movement. You go all the way wrong and touch the first line and cross over that J line. I'll call it the J line. Continue the movement up to the third line. So you can encircle that second line right there and just continue it and drop it right to hang in that space there, the first space. Now, when you get it smoothly, some you would want to start from here. It's smoother. You start from here and you go all the way around up to the tip top and then bring it down like so. So after you have the mechanics of it, you could start a reverse. Start from here and bring it around. It's a much smoother motion. Oops. So this is all the way there. So I have to bring my J slightly slanted. So this is something you'll practice. It can be quite relaxing. Just get that smooth movement, but it must be very precise because you remember you want to encircle the second line. So it's not just a random. I mean, if you're just drawing it in a space, you're just putting it here, then I guess it could be random, but it's very precise where it's placed on the stave. Remember the G clef or the treble clef is used to notate high pitched notes, the upper notes on the stave.
The F clef or bass clef.
So we just did the clef that houses, let's say, the higher pitched notes, and the clef that depicts the lower pitched note is called the F clef or bass clef. Let me just type it here just so we remember it. F clef or bass clef. And bass is spelled B-A-S-S. I've gotten some spelling. Well, I guess it's from maths, B-A-S-E. That's not how you spell it for music. B-A-S-S, bass clef. All right, and the bass clef, like I said before, just like the treble clef, will be found at the beginning of the stave. And I'm going to place this just where we use it now. So this note headish looking stuff here, it's on the fourth line. 1, 2, 3, 4, and you would notice on the fourth line we also have a dot below the fourth line and a dot above it. That is telling us and it's indicating to us where a specific F is. All right, and this F before modern time, it could have moved. You could have had your F clef here, and if it was down here, this was telling the people the line that is between these two dots, or on this note head, this line is F. So the F was movable according, if somebody is singing only notes above F, it would be best to just put the F down here because they will have access to the stave on top. If a person was singing a lot of notes below the F line, then they would put the F a little higher so they'll have access to the stave. But now, the F clef that is standard is this F clef or bass clef on the fourth line. So it's not movable, it's very fixed. So obviously, when you're drawing it, it has to be precisely like this. So to draw the F clef or bass clef, I'm gonna try it here. Okay, so on the fourth line, this is where a good point is to start. You're gonna draw a note head. It's really difficult to shade on this because I'm using a mouse pad. So you get a notepad, a note head like this, and then from your note head you go up to touch the fourth line, and I like to say you're making a gigantic apostrophe. You know. And then after you finish making apostrophe, you just let it hang within the first space here, just like so. And then you put a dot above the fourth line and a dot below the fourth line. Yeah, so my F clef is looking atrocious. It's not very smooth. So what you could do is just draw a circle here. One more time, note head on the fourth line. It must be on the fourth line because that's why it's called the F clef. It's showing that that fourth line is where F is. And then you come right around like an apostrophe. And then you put a dot above the fourth line. Well, above the F line, we'll call it, and a dot below the fourth line. Oops. So we can practice drawing our F clef or bass clef, which is used for low pitched notes.
Notes on the treble staff.
All right, so let's discuss the notes on treble clef. First, you need to know is that the pitches are labeled using the first 7 letters of our English alphabet. So the pitches are labeled from A all the way to G. A, B, C, D, E, F, and G. And when you have the treble clef, as I said before, is used for high-pitched notes, notes that are higher. So the treble clef, in culmination with notes in various lines and spaces, will itemize or dictate what the pitch is going to be. So here I have 4 notes. Yes, 4 pitches, and these 4 pitches are in the space from the lowest space, first space, second space, third space, and fourth space. And the letters you use from the music alphabet will be F, A, C, and E. Okay, so these are the pitches, the labeling for the note that is in the first space of the treble clef, that's F. The note that is in the second space of the treble clef is E. Third is C and E. And if you, easy way to remember it is that the space notes of the treble clef spells face, space for face. Yes, do we see that? So these are the pitches of the space from the first space all the way to the fourth space of the treble clef. Let's go to the line pitches. So the line pitches, here we have first line, second line, third line, fourth line, and fifth line. And these are labeled E, G, B, D, and F. E for the first line, G, B, D, F. So you commit it to memory. When you were young, some people put acronyms. Every good boy does fine. Anyway, to remember it, after continuous use, you would just know that first line is E, top line is F, D, B, G. So you could come up with your own ways to memorize them. Now, should I combine the line notes and the space notes together? So first line followed by first space, second line, second space, third line, third space, all the way up to the fifth line. The notes would be as follow. Excuse the chord that is being played. E. Then remember the first space was F. F. Then G. And the next space was A. F A. B. C. D. E. F. And the pitches song higher from low to high as you go up the stave. You notice that E, F, G, right after the G, the alphabet begins again. A, B, C, D, E, F. So it goes in the order. Before up here, you'd see it skipped a letter, F. This is F, and then it skips all the way to A, and then the A skips all the way to C, and the C skips all the way to E. That's because we left out the line in between there. The line would have filled the extra letters. So between F and A is the G. Between the space A and C, the line that is in between there will be B. And between C and E, C and E is the D, that would have been the line. So when you put them all together, it moves chronologically through the alphabet, E, F, G, and since that's the last pitch of the music alphabet, you start over A, B, C, D, E, F. So it might be best that you just focus on one pitch that you'll remember, F, or even G, because you remember this second line is encircled, is called G. So you see that's G. So if you remember that is G, because that's the G clef encircling it, then you just have to say your alphabet by steps. You go up to the next space, that'll be A, go up to the next line, that's B, go up to the space C, up D, up E, up F. So that's the music alphabet there. I'm gonna just put an E right here. I'll use a whole note. E on the first line. And that's the first line, but I want to show you that you can put pitches that is lower than E. The pattern is line, space, line note, space note. So if this is a line note, the note before it should be on a space. Sorry, I want to make it a whole note. D. So there you are. So you can hang those off the front line, well, the first line of your stave like this. So this is my E, and this is my D. D, E. After D, E, you go up, we will be in our first space, which is F. So I just showed you in front of the line here, because when I showed you the alphabet, I showed you from this first line, but I'm saying below the first line, you could hang a space note, and that'll be D, because the letter before E is D. So I'm going to do the same thing for the top. I'm going to put an F because F is the highest note here. I'm going to put a high F there. So that's low F. It want to give me back this low F, but I'm going to put the F that's 8 notes away. All right, let's label that F. After the F, the next letter will be G. This is on the line. I'm going to climb up on the space. I can put a G to sit on that space up there. And that will be G. F, G. Before the F in the space is E. All right, so there we go. Before E is D, after F is G. This hangs off the stave. This sits on the stave. They are both space notes. Space notes clearly because there's no line going through the center of it like this line note, here. So just to recap, your space notes from the lowest space all the way up are the letters F, A, C, E, spells face. Your line notes from the first line to the second, third, fourth, fifth are E, G, B, D, F. Every good boy does fine. If you combine it from the first line to the first space, to the second line to the second space, you have the music alphabet, of course, beginning on the low pitch, which is E, E, F, G, A, B, C, D, E, F. We also learned that just in front of this lowest line that you have as E, you can hang a note in the space to give you D. Before E is D, so that's why it gets its letter. And after the F, which is your highest pitch, you can put a note just a step higher to the G, sitting on top of the stave, like so. Now the pattern, you can see it's line, space, line, space, line, space. You got this, you got the pattern. So this is a space note. You'd expect that the note before it is a line. That's because it seemed like we ran out of lines because we have no more lines. What you could do is extend the range of your stave by placing the note on what we call a ledger line. Only when you require that note do you put it there. So now you kept the pattern. This is a line note. This is a space note. Line note, space note, line note, space note. So you could actually extend the stave by adding a short little line, just a little longer than your note head, so people can clearly see the line is going through the note. And of course, because this comes, it's a little lower, it's a step lower than the D, this note will be C. The special C, we call it the middle C. The middle C. And obviously, if you can extend your stave down, or we suppose you could extend your stave up. Yeah. So we're going to put A on that space there, on that line. We're going to draw a ledger line and put the A there. Right here. After G is E. You can extend the stave by adding ledger lines, Ledger lines, ledger lines, up or down. So these are the notes on the treble stave in a nutshell, from lowest to highest, stepwise, using the music alphabet.
Notes on the bass staff.
A staff that begins with a bass clef. There's a bass clef at the very beginning. And let's look at the space notes. So when you place the space notes, just like in treble, you could place notes on the first space, second, third, and fourth space. And these are labeled differently. A for the first space, C, E, G. A very popular acronym they use is all cows eat grass, A, C, E, G. With continued practice, this would be necessary. So the spaces in the base are A, C, E, G. Um, for the lines, moving up to the lines, we have 5 lines. First line, second, third, fourth, fifth line. And the base letters are G, B, D, F, A. Great big dogs fight a lot. If you want to remember, just remember that this part depicts an F, that fourth line. So once you have that F, you can pretty much figure your way around the bass stave. It's also called an F clef because this indicates where the F is on the bass staff. Combining all the lines and space notes, we have line, go up to the first space, second line, go up to the second space, third line, third space, and it has basically the same pattern. Once you begin the alphabet and you go up stepwise, line, space, it will go in a chronological order. So after the G, which is the last letter of the music alphabet, you start over A, B, C, D, E, F. And there's the F on that fourth line, G, A. Similarly, I'm going to put the lowest line note that we have. We have G. And if you go down to the space that's before that first line, you put a note there, it will be the letter before the G, which is the F. And if I need to, and I need to go even lower than the F, the note before it should be a line note. And because there's no more line on the stave, we draw a tiny line, which is just surpassing the size of the note head. So you can tell that there's a line going through it. It's called a ledger line, Ledger, and you use ledger lines to extend your stave. So your stave temporarily has 6 lines when you use this ledger line here. And because it's the note before the F, this would be labeled E. So E, then you go up, you remove the ledger line, you don't need it anymore because this is on the stave, F, G. Should I go to the top of the stave? On that fifth line, we have E. And then you want to put the note that's above the 8 will sit up on top here, and you can clearly see it's a space. You could tell a note's a space note because there's no lines going through it. After the A, you go up to B, and then this is middle C. You remember the treble clef below we had the middle C? This is the exact same pitch, but these are all the notes that are below the middle C. We have finally come up to reach, this is the low note on your treble stave, the same middle C. So they meet in the middle. The bass stave meets the treble stave right in the middle. So there's one ledger line and you meet your middle C.